All right, so welcome back to the Cracks in Postmodernity. Today we have Rick, who is an English philologist and the creator of Crónicas Lingüísticas YouTube channel. He's living in Spain. Rick, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for inviting me.
So before we talk a little bit about Rosalia, her music, just tell us a little bit about what you studied, philology, and the things that, and your other interests.
Well, I studied philology in Granada, which is not Granada the country, Granada the south of Spain, the Alhambra place.
Mhm.
And then I moved to the UK for 1 year to continue my studies there. I did a master's on linguistics, more focused on language acquisition, and then another one on teaching English as well. And now I'm an English teacher, doing a PhD on linguistics, on language variation, actually, which is part of sociolinguistics. Also, well, that story is kind of interesting because first I was studying computers,
Mhm.
and
Okay. Wow.
and then I moved to the not as a degree, not as a university, but here in Spain we have something that I don't know what's called like in other countries. It's like between high school and in university, we call it professional formation,
Okay.
something
Okay.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's something like some things like you study things that you can find at university, but they're way more focused. For example, I
Mhm.
was doing programming, right?
Mhm.
And if you try to do that at university, you have to study a lot of languages, I mean, for coding and all that, but also a lot of mathematics and a lot of things that normally when you finish that degree, you end up working in a company and you don't use most of it. Whereas this professional information is more focused on the market, on the working market.
Mhm.
So basically, you just study web design. It's more focused on that database and coding basically. So when I finished that, I had the opportunity to go to an Erasmus. It's an internship
Okay.
Erasmus program, and I decided to go to Ireland. I went to Dublin for a few months,
Mhm.
and then I have to say that I hadn't studied any English at all in the previous 4 years before that. So my knowledge of English at that point was like the same knowledge of a 10-year-old kid probably, or something like that. But I decided to go there because I wanted to improve my English, and then I had to work there. I was working and I was studying on my own as well at the same time. And when I finished, well, it was the world crisis.
Mhm.
So finding a job there was like very difficult. And I was like, well, in this time being here, I realized that it's something I really like more than computing, and it's languages. And so I came back to Spain and I started learning languages, and then I went to university and to study English philology so far.
Mhm.
And this is how I did it. Yeah.
Nice. So I found you through your YouTube video about Rosalia's MOTOMAMI, and it's interesting because you're approaching it primarily from a linguistic point of view, but also from this,
Hmm.
cultural analysis. So before we
Hmm.
get to that album, her most recent one, I'm just curious to hear, especially, living in Spain where, where she's from and where she has the most
Yeah.
influence. Yeah, the progression from the beginning, from her first album, Los Angeles, up until today, what do you see in her? I don't know, what has changed for her? How do you think she's progressed since, the first album?
Well, I have to say that I'm not a real Rosalia consumer. I
Mhm.
have to say, I have to admit that. But when I did before I answer that question, I think I need to explain this. I'm not a real Rosalia consumer, apart from the typical tunes that you can hear on the radio, for
Sure.
example, and that made me um, become more curious about her and her style and why she was doing this or that. Um, so I don't really know that first album. I've heard a couple of songs,
Mhm.
and there is a huge change. I think in this first album, she was more. I don't know. I wouldn't say that she was enjoying more, but she was more focused on one
Yeah.
style.
Mhm.
Um, Probably because at that point, I think she was still at university. She was studying.
Yeah.
She
Hmm.
was studying music. So she was like, well, doing her final thesis, or even though she finished with the second album, I think she finished the university with the second album, but
Yeah.
we can see that she was really into this flamenco style, um, folklore, and all this. And then there's a huge change with this last album, where I think that she's trying to, on the one hand, find her place, her style, let's say, and for that she has to like play with everything. It's like she's not abandoning the folklore style, the flamenco style.
Hmm.
She's been really criticized for that, obviously. Both sides. I mean, by those those people who say you should not do that, and those people who say you should not do what you're doing now.
Yeah.
So I mean, she's got haters everywhere, no matter what she does, I guess. But then I think that this is where we can see this change. She's trying to find her own style, and for that she has to play with everything until now. I mean, this is a very eclectic, very chaotic album. But then I think that we'll find more calm in the next album.
You do. Okay.
But this is my opinion.
Okay. So we'll see. We'll soon find out. But yeah, no, I
Yeah.
mean the first album, yeah, it's this mix of the folk and the flamenco, and a lot of it she's redoing songs that, she's covering songs by other artists and putting her own spin on it. But then I
Mm-hmm.
think you see with the second album, El Mal Querer, when she first gets international
Yeah.
recognition, she starts playing
Yeah.
with
That
the beat.
that's
Yeah.
no that I was saying that's where I got to know her. I mean, I didn't know anything from her previously. So it was because actually it was because I'm not a musical analyst
Hmm.
or anything. I'm a philologist, and I tried to do this video because I found it interesting. And all this comes from another video from a YouTube channel by a YouTuber called Jaime Altozano that you probably
Hmm.
know.
Yeah.
All right, he did a marvelous analysis of El Marcader from a musical perspective,
Hmm.
because he is a musical analyst
Hmm.
and what many things as well, right? And that was really interesting the way she put everything there. And then I heard this new album, and it had nothing to do with that, but she was still playing with the lyrics, you know. And that's when I think, well, I'm not a musician, but I know a couple of things about Litata, and I'm seeing that she's doing something there. So let's try to analyze what she's doing, because literature is all about puns and interpreting as well.
And
It's true
also,
that I mentioned a
yeah.
couple of things. Yeah.
No, I was going to say the basis of El Mal Querer is, a significant piece of literature. I think it's the story of La Flamenca, which is what is an Occitan, like
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
narrative.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so the whole basis is that story, and she was trying to integrate, the traditional music, the stories from the past with, a modern spin. So, but no, I mean, I'm interested to hear just from your kind of literary perspective what you see in that album,
In this new album.
and on the El Mal
Yeah.
Querer, the second one, yeah.
Well, Mad Querer, we can say that. I don't know if I should say this, but there's no effort, let's say,
Hmm.
on the lyrics,
Interesting.
because I mean, on her part, because the lyrics were already there.
Hmm.
I mean, the Mal Querer, as I should say, is based on a piece of work from 12th century. I don't really
I
remember.
think so, yeah.
Um, and it's in another language. I think it was in Occitan as
Occitan.
well. So she basically took the lyrics, took this poem or piece of work, and then she sang it. I don't know the changes because I don't know the real, I mean, the original manuscripts. All right,
Hmm.
but basically she's relating what she's got in this manuscript. On the other side, on the other hand, we have to admit that she's doing I don't know, a marvelous work with the voice. That's something that we We don't have to be deaf to realize that, you know. It's like, oh my God, she's a really good singer. Now in this work, this is something different story. She has nothing to do with that previous Rosalia. I mean, she's trying to create things on her own, and I think that she realized that it's not that easy. But she managed to do it anyways, and mix it with new rhythms, new techniques, I would say, of recording, and auto tune as well. How would you put this together so it makes some kind of sense, and it works at market level? I mean, because maybe you like it, you don't like it, but then in the real life it works. I mean, the numbers are there, you know.
Yeah.
So what is he doing there? Literally speaking, in the market, we can see that there's pure literature, but I think it's all because it was already there. I mean, it was written by probably a real writer, a poet, or other things. I don't know if it's a poem or not, but anyways, a writer. And in this case, apart from, I think she got like two. I think it was two works that were already like homage to other people. I think there were two, if I'm not wrong.
I think so, yeah.
Apart from that, because in this case she didn't have to create anything from the lyrics perspective. Apart from those two, well, she tried to play with the lyrics. We can see, well, oxymorons, for example, where you show the conflicting ideas, right? Ideas that crash as well, like hot and cold, for example, things like that. Hyperbole, when you exaggerate things, you can see many of these literary devices. And it's more childish, I would say, compared to the other one. In the other one, you can see, from my point of view, you can see a very professional in the I mean, from the perspective of literature, I mean,
yeah,
a very literary work, I would say. Whereas here you can see I don't know, something more plain. I'm not saying that it's not good. I'm not saying it's not bad. And this is interesting because when I made this video, this video went kind of viral, I would say.
Yeah, got a lot of views. Yeah.
For me, at least. I mean, my channel had at that point, I don't even know if it was like 1,000 subscribers, and I now still have like 3,000 or something like that. I'm a really tiny channel, and then I got this video with 200,000 views. For me, that was viral for my channel,
Yeah.
And then I received a lot of support, and at the same time a lot of hate. But these hates has something particular. When I receive all these hate, you can see in the comments, most of it was because the authors of these comments were criticizing the fact that I think that the new album is a masterpiece. And this is really interesting because I think nowhere in the video you can see my opinion in that sense. And the only thing the only thing I say in the video is like, it's great what she's doing, but I'm not saying if I like the music or not. I try to keep it at bay, It's like, hey, this is my opinion, trying to be objective on what she's doing. I'm not saying that I like the music or that I don't like the music. And all this hate came like saying, oh my God, how do you think that this is a masterpiece? I'm not saying that. And I'm not saying that it's the opposite. I was going to say a word, but not. I'm not saying either of them, It's like, this is what it is. You can like it or not, but it's true that what she's doing in this song is great. Now, you can like the song or not. It's like, you can like, I don't know, maybe a mystery novel, mystery movie, for example. Maybe you don't like it, but the way the director drives the attention of the spectators, you know, the audience, maybe it's great, but then you don't like the story.
Yeah.
Things are different. So
Mm.
that's why I think it's really interesting how they throw all these hate towards me with these arguments. Like, how do you like so much? I don't say that. Actually, the same at the beginning of this interview, I said I'm not really a Rosalia's consumer. I like some songs, I like some of them, but I try to be as objective as possible. So, from a point of view, in this last album, I think that she is more childish, except for some song that I explained in the video that she's becoming like more mature on purpose, right?
Mhm.
Like saying, "Hey, don't forget that I'm still here. I'm not all the time like this." And that's why you can see a really big progression from one to the other one.
Yeah. So no, I mean, let's go a little bit more in depth into Motomami because, and I have to say, your video was probably the most, I would say, the most insightful analysis that I found because most people, I know, like you really got to the depth of what she's doing, and I find that most people either they're critical of her for whatever reasons, or
Mm-hmm.
they like the sound, they like the hype, but no one's really looking at what is she really doing here. And I think,
Right.
she posted this playlist on Spotify around the time the album was released, showing all the
Yeah, I think so.
songs that inspired her, all the songs on the album. And if you look through this playlist of songs, like she has so many different kinds of genres, kinds of singers. Like she has obviously a lot of reggaeton and flamenco, but she has, like soft rock, she has classical, gospel, she has,
Mm-hmm.
of course, bachata, bolero, like hip hop, dance, club music. It's like a really eclectic mix.
Mm-hmm.
So you see that she put a lot of work and a lot of consideration into what she was doing. And I don't find that many reviewers or people analyzing her see that there's something very creative. Now you can say it's good or bad, that's another story, but there definitely is something very creative, a mix happening here. And again, in your video, I think you get to the root of that. So no, let's talk more about like the different elements that she's bringing together in this album. What do you see her doing here?
Well, I really like the way, as you said, the way she mixes different genres into one single song, one single tune, you
Mhm.
know. And the reason why I like this is because at the same time she's doing things with the music that normally we don't pay attention to, probably because we don't even know, you
Mhm.
know. It's like for example, I remember one of them because I don't remember the names of this old lyrics. The one where she was playing flamenco, she was singing and playing. Well, she was not playing the instrument.
The
Give
Bulería.
me a second. Yeah, yeah, exactly that one. That one. It's really interesting how she was like when you hear the song, it's like she's doing nothing apart from singing.
Mhm.
You listen to it and say, okay, it's a song, flamenco song, and she sings very well. That's it. But there are certain details that she's doing there at the same time. Like, well, as I explained in the video, that there are different styles of flamenco
Mhm.
that she's playing. First one, then she moves to another style, then she moves back to the other style. And it's crazy how she does that. I mean, people probably foreign people don't know this, but flamenco is um it's a huge style. Like it's like a big style with many songs
Yeah.
and authors,
Mhm.
right? People normally speak of flamenco as it is one single thing,
Yeah,
but you
one
have like
genre in
different.
itself, but different
Exactly, it's like when
styles.
you say,
Yeah.
yeah, probably a similar would be like if you say Latin music,
Mhm.
but then you
Yeah.
have bachata, you have
Salsa, merengue,
many
all
styles. So
different
flamenco
things.
is
Yeah.
something like that,
Mhm.
right? And if you are not into it, probably you don't say it. I mean, in my case, for example, I'm from the south of Spain. I wouldn't say I've grown with all these things.
Mhm.
My father, for example, used to listen to this kind of music.
Yeah.
My grandma as well. I mean, I could say for me it would be legit to say flamenco is part of my life,
Mhm.
but I can sing, I can play the guitar or
Yeah.
anything like that. she knows what I mean in that sense, you know.
Yeah.
And even for me, it was difficult to realize what she was doing. For my video, I had to do some research as well, because I could speak of the literary aspects, but not entirely from the musical aspects. That's why I don't include so many musical aspects,
Yeah.
because I don't really know them. I know a couple of them, and for that I even had to like do some research to check that it was fine, you know. And in this song, she was singing flamenco, that style, then she moves to another style, then she moves back to the other style. And with the music, she was telling you the style that she was playing with the guitar as well. And that's impossible to know if you are not a musician. So for me, that is magic, because she's doing so many things at the same time. But for you, for the listener, she's only singing.
Yeah.
She's all right, she's good singing. I like this song, I don't like this song, and that's it. And that's only one of the examples. I mean, I could say another one. I especially like the ones where she seems not to do anything, because then you realize that she's doing a lot of things, like in this case. The one that she's speaking about, the one whose name was Jenny is the name of her.
Denise, the
Exactly, Jenny's
nephew.
or Jenny's, yeah,
Yeah.
the nephew, exactly. Well, it's a very slow tune. The lyrics don't appear to be really complicated. I mean, sometimes you don't have to do complicated things to get where you want to get, you know. And this is one of the cases. She's apparently writing a letter to her nephew,
Yeah.
saying, "I'm sorry because I'm here and you're there and I'm missing you," and all this. But then you see how she speaks about Hollywood. The melody of the music gets sort of takes you to the exact point of drama that she wants you to be in. And it's probably the saddest tune of all. And then you hear her grandma as well, which is like using, which I think is wonderful, using her mother tongue, which is not Spanish.
It's Catalan.
It's
Yeah.
Catalan, right? I mean, she could have said, "Hey, grandma, can you send me the same audio in Spanish, because I'm going to put this into the album." I mean, if you think from the market point of view, it's like, well, if you do it in Spanish, you're going to have more audience able to understand what she's saying. If you do it in Catalan or in any other, let's say, minority language, you're risking losing that song, you know, somehow. But she was like, I don't care.
Yeah.
It's like, so she's not afraid of doing what she enjoys, and expressing what she is, really.
Yeah. And I mean, one of the themes that you really highlight, starting with the first song on the album, is this sense first of dualism, of like opposing elements being joined together, but also of chaos, of what we could say deconstruction. So like in Saoko, she's mixing this reggaeton beat with the jazz piano. And you talk a little bit about the lyrics and the themes. So can you say a little bit just about those themes of, again, the dualism, the contrast, but also the chaos?
Yeah, you mean the first song, right?
Yeah.
Which is Saoko. All right. Yeah, I think that's a perfect song. Obviously, she did it on purpose, I guess. It's the perfect song to start this album. We were talking about the progression from the last album to this one, and how her style changed. And this is the perfect mirror for that. You can say that the song is a eclectic, has apparently no pattern. When you are like getting the gist of the song, then the song changes into another thing, and then you go, I think, went to jazz somehow at some point of the song, and then it went back to Latin rhythms, and it's like, what the hell is going on here, right? And then using sounds of well, not, I would call them noise. So you
Hmm.
use noise as part of the music as well.
Yeah, with the
Um,
motorcycles. Yeah.
exactly, as like percussion, right?
Hmm.
And it's like, wow, maybe you don't like this, but um, I think this is the perfect song to start the album because of this, because then this song is telling you what you're going to find in the album. You're going to find Latin rhythms, you're going to find interesting mixes, you're going to find things that seem not to have any sense together. But as we can see in the album, the whole album itself has its own progression until the last song,
Hmm.
where she actually says goodbye from a concert.
Yeah.
It chooses that song, this because don't forget that this album was recorded in a studio,
Yeah.
and then she included the noise, well, the sound of the audience from a concert, which was a previous concert, right? But she chose that for the last song uh, of the album for a reason. And this first song is at the same time showing, well, how would you chose? Sorry, how would you show um, this random element?
Hmm.
Okay, not only with the noise, not only with the style, but also with the lyrics. That's how she's using, well, cold, held, quick, slow, blah blah blah. Right? I don't know the lyrics from heart by heart, but that's how she does it basically, and and it covers. I think this covers all the different elements that you will find in the whole album.
Hmm. Yeah, and I also, you were saying how in the first song, but in many of the songs, that she's using language, like she's using slang from Puerto Rico, from Dominican
Yeah,
Republic. She's using, slang from Spain. She's using the
exactly.
Catalan. She's referring to traditional, both like modern figures, whether from America, Latin
Yeah.
America, flamenco artists, models, celebrities. Like it's the kind of juxtaposition of all this language and these references contributes to this sense of of duality and
Hmm.
chaos, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and the one of the other themes that you were saying, it's this childish sense of just kind of nonsense. So like when you look at chicken teriyaki, it's a silly kind of idea that she's singing about chicken teriyaki. And one of the lyrics that you highlight, she talks about rosas azules, so like blue roses, which naturally don't exist,
Yeah, I have
right?
to say that at that point, I made a mistake in my video
Yeah,
about that. Well, it's not really a mistake, I would say, because
yeah.
a lot of comments on the video said, "Hey, you're wrong. You're wrong about this interpretation of Rosas." I think it was the no Rosas Azules. I think it was Rosas Azules or Benji's,
I
or
think,
both of them. Yeah.
yeah.
The thing is that I said, well, in the case of Benji's, I got two mistakes in the video,
Okay.
but I wouldn't tag them as mistakes completely because, as I say again, and the whole video was my interpretation of what she was doing.
Hmm.
And I interpreted that thing in a way that was apparently wrong because when she speaks about the rosas azules, the blue roses,
Hmm.
or the Benjis, she's talking about money. And in the video, I was saying that she was probably referring to something else, right? Or she was meant to say this or whatever. But I recorded the video in 2 days,
Okay.
so it was really difficult for me to check everything, and I knew, of course, that something was going to to leak or something was going to go through my hands. Um, but yeah, she's including a lot of slang, as you say, from Puerto Rico, from Spain, Andalusian slang as well, sometimes in the song
Hmm.
related to the folklore and flamenco. And linguistically, I think that is wonderful. And some people complain about that because she was like, "Hey, why don't you focus on one style? Why don't you?" Or when we talk about the appropriation as
Hmm.
well, cultural appropriation, she's been really and heavily judged for that,
Yeah.
when I don't think that there is any reason to do that.
Mm.
I think it started with
Controversial.
even
Yeah.
Spanish people.
Well,
Huh?
okay. I mean, the first accusation of appropriation begins, I mean, from the first album because she's doing flamenco music and she's doesn't have any gypsy blood. She's,
Yeah,
Nakitana. So what
but
do you make of that accusation of non-gypsy Spaniards making flamenco
yeah.
music?
Sorry again?
I mean, do you think that's like a valid accusation that like if you're Spanish
No.
but you don't have gypsy blood? Because she said it herself. She said like someone asked her like, "Do you think you're appropriating?" And she's like, "No, flamenco doesn't belong to gypsies." Which is, I mean, it's from gypsies, but do you have to be gypsy to sing it? Well, that's
Yeah.
what everyone's arguing about.
This accusation for me makes no sense. That is like if you say, if I'm not British, I can speak English.
Yeah.
For me, right?
Mhm.
But let's go to music then, and let's use musical examples, right? So when they say, and this is such a pity because a lot of these accusations came from Spanish people as well, because here in Spain, flamenco is seen as a gypsy thing, right? And it's something that, I mean, it's really weird to see and to listen to somebody performing some kind of flamenco if they are not from flamenco roots, you
Mhm.
know. So that's why Spanish people are so critical with that. But I mean, well, actually, if I'm not wrong, the best flamenco singer in the world right now is from Catalonia. Miguel Poveda is his name. And the most interesting thing, because in Catalonia, you know, during the dictatorship, during Franquismo, when Francisco Franco was a dictator before we had a king and all that before democracy. Um, well, first of all, minority languages were forbidden in Spain, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
You could only speak Spanish. Besides that, because of the poverty in different areas of the country, many Andalusian people migrated to Catalonia in the northeast of Spain.
Yeah.
So nowadays, it's pretty common to find Catalan people with Andalusian parents
Mhm.
or grandpas. I mean, it's quite normal. So you can think, okay, this guy was born there, but half of his family is from Andalusia. So it makes sense. The interesting point in this case is that this guy has no family from Andalusia, has no links with Andalusia. He's 100%, let's say, from Catalonia, and he's the number one singer in the world,
Wow.
talking about flamenco, right? So that's one example. Also, um, by the way, my final thesis when I was at university was about Black English,
Mm.
African American vernacular English, for those who are not familiar with it.
Yeah.
So I will set something for those people who maybe don't know what I'm talking about. If we accuse her of committing cultural what do we say, cultural appropriation, exactly, sorry. Well, what should we do about Eminem then?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a perfect example. He was a white guy and he was using a music style that nowadays everybody sings and everybody performs, but let's go back in time. Let's go back to the 90s.
Mhm.
It was, I mean, rap was rap itself. The word rap is Black English.
Yeah.
I mean, rap means speak in Black English.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because these people don't know this. These people don't know anything that even, and maybe you can tell me, I would say even white American people still think that, most of them, I guess, no, maybe not 100%, but they still think that Black people speak wrong English
Some
or
people,
don't know
yeah, it
even.
depends. It's,
Oh,
it depends where you are because I guess it's a little bit passe or politically incorrect
yeah,
to tell
exactly.
someone who speaks AAVE that's improper English. But I don't know. I mean, the thing with Eminem, I at least I see this with hip hop in the US that if you're white and you're rapping, there's an expectation that you're going to show a certain level of respect to black
Hmm.
people because the music did not originate from white people. It's it's primarily black
Yeah.
Americans. And I think like with Rosalia, I remember earlier on El País put out a video on YouTube with I think who was it? Maria Jose Diego and some other gypsy flamenco singer, basically
Uh-huh.
saying like if you are white and you're going to sing flamenco, you need to show more respect to gypsies. Like you should be talking more about gypsies. You need to show that like the music you're making is coming from oppressed people. And one of the singers in the video said something about how in the video for Malamente, she's
Hmm.
using like images that are associated with gypsies. She uses words that the gypsies use, but in a way that's too playful. They're saying like she needs to show a little bit more reverence, and that she gives the sense that she's taking advantage of the gypsies. And it's like, on one hand, sure, maybe she could show more respect or give more recognition to gypsies, but at the end of the day, what concerns me is that people totally dismiss her music because they think, oh, this is morally wrong. What she's doing is, it's like, again, the question of morality is something on the side. The quality of the
Hmm.
music, the creativity, I don't think you can deny that something aesthetically, artistically good is happening, whether or not
Yeah.
you think it's morally a problem. Because who else is doing this? Who else is merging, a traditional Spanish gypsy form of music with all these other genres in a very creative way?
Yeah.
Like, I think she deserves respect,. For that.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
And you mentioned in your video that when she did La Fama, that she's doing bachata, which is a Dominican form of music. She's not
Hmm.
Dominican. The Weekend is not Hispanic. He's Black Canadian. Um,
But listen, Shakira did a bachata as well,
yeah, yeah.
but Shakira is not Dominican.
Yeah, and again, it's like, sure, you can make the claim that, oh, she should talk about how bachata comes from Dominicans and she should have, sure, whatever, but is the song creative or not? I think first of all, the lyrics are very interesting, what she's saying about
Hmm.
fame, but also just the sound. Because she said that her goal was to create a bachata song without guitars, which is
Hmm.
very uncommon. And she did. She did it with, with percussion and with, synthesizer, but I mean, it is an interesting song. Whether you think it's politically correct or not, it's another story.
Yeah. That's what we were talking about at the beginning of the interview. Like, you got this, what she's doing is great. Now you can like it or not, but that doesn't mean that that doesn't clash with the idea of being good or bad.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I wrote in the article that I sent you is that like when our primary way of critiquing music is through the lens of morality and not through artistry and aesthetics, it's like
Yeah.
we're losing sight on what the point of art is. Art isn't always moral. Art isn't always politically correct. That's not necessarily the point. And I'm just finding, at least in the US, and I'm sure also in some ways in Spain, that most people, their first question is like, is this politically correct or not? Is this moral or not? And again, it's like, that's a question on the side. This is art. Like, we need to judge, is this good
Yeah.
quality art or not? Whether you like it morally or not, that's something else.
I think just because she became such a mediatic figure, she's in the spotlight. So whatever she does is going to be criticized, whether you like it or not. And that's it. I think when you get to this point, you get to this level of popularity,
Mhm.
it's something that you have to deal with. There are going to be people who love what you do. There are going to be people who hate what you do. And unfortunately, not only in Spain, but I think in the whole world, um, a lot of people are going to criticize what you do with no arguments at all.
Mhm.
Just for the sake of it, just because I hate what you do, and I have the need of making you know it for some reason. I don't know why people
Yeah.
have this need.
Well,
It's like,
people want
why?
attention. I think part of it's people just want to take advantage of a chance to get attention, but also
Yeah,
maybe like to be able to criticize somebody else morally for what they're doing wrong might feel empowering. It might make you feel like a better person. I don't know. But
yeah,
again, it's just like it's sad that people don't really look at the quality of art as much.
exactly. Or maybe just, but for different reasons. Sometimes they are well, let's say they are ignorant
Mm,
in that aspect, or some ignorant. Some of them ignorant because they don't know about that topic or that art, whatever it is,
yeah.
or sometimes which is worse because they just don't want to do some research.
Well, that too. Yeah.
You
Um,
know,
and
so I
it's
prefer
interesting. Yeah.
to say this,
Hmm.
and that's it. I
Yeah.
don't care if it's true or not.
Yeah, and her attitude towards it, it's funny because, like, for example, you mentioned in Biscochito that she kind of pokes fun at the fact that an artist like La Mala Rodriguez is criticizing her when then, who is it, Araca Kiko, the Dominican dembow
Yeah.
artist, says that he likes her. So it's like, look, I mean, you can criticize me, but people from DR who are making dembow, who are making this music, they like what I'm
Yeah.
doing. So I don't really care. Like it's just funny that she doesn't get into arguments, but she just like makes fun of it. She doesn't try
Hmm.
to defend herself necessarily.
Exactly. It's just like, hey, this is what I got. There you have it. And yeah, which is funny when in the song she says something like, hey, and you had to deal with it because your mom is singing my song.
Yeah, yeah,
Which is like I said.
yeah. She has a sense of humor.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think the recurring theme of this like this chaos, this deconstruction of the categories and merging, merging seemingly opposing categories. Um, it's an interesting commentary just on what's happening in the culture today that you're seeing more and more, at least if you look at it philosophically, like this postmodern, post-structuralist sensibility that, certain categories we take for granted are falling apart and that, you know, um, we're merging these opposites, the opposing ideals. Um,
Hmm.
it's just a reflection of what's going on. And I feel like when most people talk about her, it's either to criticize the cultural appropriation or they just like it because it's catchy music. And I don't find many people who are reading into what she's the cultural commentary and the real creativity of her music.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious to ask because, like, at least in the U.S., the only people who talk about her is like, I think Latin Americans, Latinos living in the U.S.
Hmm.
They know her music. Some people are mad at her. I think vast majority, like listening to her songs on the radio, and also because she collaborates with reggaeton singers. She's dating Raul Alejandro, so like they know who she is. But few
Hmm.
people are actually analyzing, like, what is she saying? Why is this culturally relevant? In Spain, what is the general attitude? Like, do you see people reading into her? Do you see people who are just fans because it's catchy? What do you see in Spain?
I think it's pretty much the same. You got
Yeah,
people who really like it because it's just catchy, people who are, I don't know, people who don't really care about if it's moral or morally incorrect or not.
mhm,
They just want to enjoy the music. It's catchy. Let's go on. And then of course we have a lot of haters, as I said at the beginning, and because they try to use everything at hand to be right,
yeah,
so they use sometimes the topic of, hey, you shouldn't use this genre because you're not gypsy or you're not flamenca or you're blah 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 blah. But I think in general, if we talk about percentages, maybe I think more than half, way more than half, enjoy the songs, enjoy the album because it's catchy. And at the end of the day, um, that's what it counts. You probably have a lot of people who criticize her, and I'm really sure that they have mm, they have at least mumbled the songs more than once.
mhm, yeah,
Knowing or not knowing that it was one of her songs. But now, for example, with TikTok,
mhm,
right? You have a lot of challenges.
yeah,
And when she released the album, a couple of these challenges with her music became viral as well. So then, and of course, you could see in the comments, "Hey, I don't like this, blah blah blah." But most of the comments were good, sharing the video, all the people trying to replicate and do the same as well. I think that's the most general idea about the album, that people like it. People
mhm,
like it because at the end of the day, yeah, you can argue with somebody if you want, but at the end, people are going to get tired of that argument.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, if you want to argue, argue on your own. Just leave me alone.
Yeah.
And people prefer to enjoy. That's it. So yeah,
Yeah.
you got both sides, but I think that you got more people that enjoy than people that doesn't.
Mm. Yeah, and the other thing I was going to ask you, so like I because I studied Spanish literature when I was in Spain, like I
Mm-hmm.
tend to find certain other literary themes beyond the, La Flamenca and Malquerer. I feel like there are some allusions to Lorca in some of her works because at least on Malquerer, there's
Mm-hmm.
Que no salga la luna, which is basically it's based
All right.
on bolas de sangre, but
Exactly.
also the kind of there are these mystical spiritual themes that you see running throughout her music. Some of it's borrowing from more ancient kind of pagan mythology. Some of it's from like Catholic mysticism. She covered the song of San Juan de la Cruz. She did Aunque sea de noche or something. But one of the things that I noticed is that in one of Lorca's essays on the Duende, he talks about how the Duende is like, the awareness of death, of the inevitability of the fact that we're all going to die, that life is dramatic, that, life is not as picture perfect and clean as we may want it
Uh-huh.
to be. And that the flamenco singers, they capture that sense, that awareness of the tragic or of death. And in this essay that he writes about the duende, he mentions, like beyond Spain and flamenco culture, you see that kind of sensibility all around the world. And he mentions the music of Afro-Caribbeans in Puerto Rico and
Mm-hmm.
Cuba. He mentions that, the style of drumming, the way of singing, captures the same sensibility as the flamenco singers. So when you see her doing reggaeton, doing dembow, and mixing it with flamenco, and people are critical, it's like there's actually a lot of parallels here. There's actually a similar sensibility, a similar, at
Yeah.
least spiritual or philosophical awareness. But also musically speaking, like, you know, Caribbean music is not that distant from flamenco. I mean, because when the Spaniards were in Latin America, they brought certain sounds, they brought certain instruments. So like sonically as well, you see that they converge, they come together. Because like when she did Linda with Tokisha, there it's a dembow song, but they're doing the flamenco hand claps, and it goes together.
Exactly.
It's like again, you
Yeah.
can
Yeah. Yeah.
criticize morally for whatever, but there's so much thematically and musically that's happening in this mix that you can't ignore that it's very creative.
It is, and it's funny because, for example, most of these people who criticize her from the flamenco point of view, again, some of them are really ignorant, and this can be healed with some research. Sometimes I speak of flamenco as if flamenco is something that has been here from the beginning of the times.
Mhm.
They forget that flamenco is a music style that has been and is in a constant evolution.
Mhm.
For example, let me show you something that many people don't know or just forget. One of the elements in flamenco, one of the instruments, the most popular instruments in flamenco. When they play flamenco, they use, of course, the Andalusian guitar, right?
Mhm.
The flamenco guitar, but they use another really popular instrument, which is what we call el cajón.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
don't I don't know if it has a translation into English because if we translate it literally, it would mean the
The box.
drawer.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's the name for it. Cajon is how would you describe it? It's
Like
like
a
a
box.
wooden box,
Yeah.
right? Depending on where you slap, it has like a different
Different sound.
sound,
Yeah.
right? Somehow. All right. So this is one of the most iconic instruments for flamenco,
Mhm.
but this was introduced in the 70s in flamenco,
Interesting. Okay. I didn't know that.
right?
Wow.
Actually, some years ago, the best flamenco guitar player of all the times, Paco de Lucia,
Mhm.
died. Right, he died, and he was the one introducing the cajon
Mhm.
to flamenco because he said in an interview that he had been on tour in the United States, in around America as well, and some people who I think it was some people who went with him or something saw it, It actually, I think it comes from the Peruvian cajon.
Okay.
Which is
Wow.
very, 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 very similar, right? And then he said, hey, why don't we use it? And they introduced the flamenco into the, I mean, sorry, they introduced the cajon into the flamenco music. Nowadays, you cannot think of flamenco without this instrument,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
It was really criticized at the time. I don't know because I wasn't born yet,
Yeah.
but probably was like that. Now, another figure, for example, in flamenco, Camarón de la Isla,
Yeah. Hmm.
right? Probably you've heard of him. It's like
Yeah.
one of the best flamenco singers of the world. Now he is seen as probably I'm going to receive a lot of hatred after this video
Yeah.
because I'm speaking about this. I'm not a flamenco or something, but
Yeah.
the thing is he is seen nowadays as well one of the maximum figures in flamenco,
Yeah.
right? Top three, top two singers, right? But some would say that other flamenco's style, other flamenco's flamenco was even better than his. The reason why he became so popular or so good in this world was not only because of the way he sang, but because the way he mixed flamenco with other styles.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you think you mentioned Camarón, at least in Spain, and say, oh, flamenco.
Yeah.
But they think of flamenco in a very archaic way,
Okay.
in
Yeah.
a very archaic way. When he was trying to change flamenco, actually,
Mhm.
to make it more modern. I mean, you just have to listen to any of his. I mean, he's got traditional flamenco albums as well, but he was trying to change everything, to break the canons.
Yeah, and this is one of the reasons why I think MOTOMAMI deserves more recognition because
Yeah.
it's not only that she's merging different styles of music, but she's merging different forms of culture. So like, I don't know, like I keep thinking of Andy Warhol and the pop art movement, that you're merging high art culture with mass media popular culture. Similar to what Lady Gaga did with the art pop album, but you're taking reggaeton, you're taking hip hop, dance club music, references to, again, to celebrities like these models, Naomi Campbell, and merging it with people who are considered, major artists, whether it's Camarón de la Isla. She mentions like classical musicians. She talks about, social media, TikTok culture, but you're merging the high culture and the low culture, for lack of a better term, which I think is really creative. But it's also, at least from my perspective, this is the first time I'm seeing someone bringing reggaeton, contemporary Caribbean music, into dialogue with high culture to the point of really what I would say, like, she's making it part of the artistic canon, the musical canon, which,
Mm-hmm.
again, I'm sure there are other artists who have done it, but not at the level that she has. And I think rather than criticizing her for using that music, she deserves respect for bringing it into dialogue with this global perspective. Because, I think it deserves to be brought into this dialogue, and I just don't see many people doing that.
Yeah. I see as well that there are many people who are criticizing her all the time just because they, for some reason, hate her. Uh, there are sometimes I agree that you cannot like everybody.
No.
All right. But hating is a different thing. For me, hating is like a very big word.
Hmm.
And nowadays it's used as a normal word, as a plain word. And but sometimes people go too far, It's like and then sometimes just because they don't like her, they decide to criticize everything she does without even trying to give it a go, without even trying to sit down, listen to it carefully, and try to find out what she's doing there, which I think is really stupid for
Yeah.
their part, to be honest. But we live in a society that I think that nowadays, I mean, um, our world is becoming something really, really fast. People want everything at the time. We live in a moment where you can express your opinion at the moment, and that opinion goes around the world in a couple of seconds. And people still don't realize that, and don't realize that the power of their own words and the the harm, the pain that they can cause as well. They just use these words um indistinctively, as if they
Yeah.
were saying something completely different. They don't pay attention to what they say. I imagine that if these people had most of the time the person in question in front of them, I wonder if they would say the same thing,
Mm.
the
Yeah.
same way.
Yeah, no, I think it's an interesting question. And that leads to one of the last things that I wanted to bring up is the theme of fame, of getting recognition, which again, we can see the same kind of interest in her criticizers, that there is a desire for recognition, a desire to be heard. So, obviously the first time we hear about it on the album is in La Fama, where she talks about how
Hmm.
she talks about fame as if it's a relationship personified, that she's fascinated by fame, she's attracted, it also kills her. It's violent, it's dangerous. And then we see, where was it? So then in Diablo, I found your analysis of that to be really interesting, because
Hmm.
first sonically it has this kind of 2000 reggaeton beat, but her singing style is more of a flamenco, also with a little bit of auto tune.
Hmm.
And I like, she's talking about this like interplay between being angelic and becoming like a devil. And it kind of a reference to her first album, Los Angeles, which people
Yeah.
consider, more of a pure sound. Now she's changing things up. It's not as pure anymore. It's a little more, less traditional, more artificial. But again, this commentary on fame, like, would she have been as famous if she just continued doing that pure folklorico flamenco style? Um, no one really would be talking about her if she didn't mix things up. So,
Hmm.
you know, is it, I don't know, like, is she bad for doing it? Is she, Diablo now for getting more fame, for changing her style? And you mentioned how it's interesting at the end she has James Blake singing. Um, I don't know, what can you talk a little bit more about your thoughts on Diablo and how she ends it with James Blake?
I think you explained it very well. Yeah, she's doing in that song, Diablo. She's precisely mentioning the fact that a lot of people are criticizing her and her work as well, because we got used to her previous album, La Fama, which was, I say, a piece of work, a masterpiece. Um, and it was also like all the time the same style. I would say, maybe I'm
Mhm.
wrong. I think it was the whole album was like
Yeah,
a same style
pretty much.
together. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And now she changed, and she's being criticized for that.
Mhm.
What she's showing is people are scared of changes, basically, and that shows fear. And what people do when they fear something is hate it. They attack it. We don't like change. If you don't like something, you attack it
Yeah.
so that you get rid of it. And that's actually what people are doing with her. But she's at the same time in this song, she's saying, "Hey, don't forget that I'm still the same Rosalia as in the first album." And that's why she shows a little bit of, when she changes the style into flamenco-ish,
Mhm.
right? In the same song, like, "Hey, I'm still here. I didn't go away, right? But let's go back to now." And then she changes back again to the original style of the same song. And it's showing that she's changing, that she's trying to find a style, that she's playing with everything. But especially in this song, she's saying, not because it's different has to be bad, you know.
Mhm.
Um, Previously, the other album was great. Okay, why this one cannot be that good just because it's different? Why I can do both things? Let me do both things, right?
Yeah.
And then she introduces the other singer, right? To, I think in this case it's just for the mix of styles, not just
Mhm.
because of the message itself, but because of the mix of styles, new and old.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just
Yeah, and it's interesting that she follows up Diablo with Delirio de Grandeza, which, it's a cover
mm-hmm.
of a bolero song by Justo Betancourt.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think the fact that she decided to include bolero in the first place, it's interesting because, bolero has a history of having a Spanish root, but also very Caribbean at the same time. That it
Mm-hmm.
does, there's a lot of
It's a
overlap.
mixture.
yeah, with rumba and flamenco. Also, it's interesting that, her boyfriend Raul Alejandro did a bolero song on his album, so it's maybe a
Hmm.
trend they're starting. But no, but she takes a song which is, the original version is about a relationship, about love, but you say that she's singing it about fame, and is juxtaposing. You think she's juxtaposing this song with La Fama. So, what do you think she's saying differently about fame in Delirio de Grandeza?
Regarding Diablo,
Just about like the concept of fame itself, and like, I don't know, the different
but
elements of
the
fame.
little grandeza, I would say that she's trying to show that, the fame. Again, we have this duality of
Hmm.
good and evil, right?
Hmm.
But she's more focused on the fama itself, obviously. Otherwise, it wouldn't be called that way. But in this case, I see that she's trying to show the, both sides of fame.
Hmm.
It can be good and bad, but in this case, whereas in the other song we have good and bad from the perspective of the people, being judgmental and criticizing her because of what she does. In this case, it's more about the fame, how fame can take you to different places, depending on how you dance with it.
Mm. Okay, interesting.
I would say. So you can end up in a good place. You can end up. I mean, fame can launch you up in the sky or can put you down pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And you can probably you can think that you are in a high position and you don't realize, and maybe you are ending your career
Hmm.
as well.
Yeah, and it's
That's
I
why you
also
have
do.
delirios
Yeah.
delirios de grandeza,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, and it's again back to the previous song Diablo. I think there is also this moral question of like, are you compromising yourself if you're reaching a certain level of fame? Like, because again, if she continued just doing the pure flamenco, she probably wouldn't have reached the level of fame. So
Exactly.
perhaps she's questioning, did I sell out? Did I sell myself to the devil in order to reach this fame? Am I gonna go to the furthest length to get even more fame? Like, it's, you see, again, she's kind of questioning her own integrity.
Yeah. Or probably if she had continued with the flamenco side, probably even though she might have received at the beginning a lot of criticism, probably she would have like consolidated as a flamenco singer, so she wouldn't be maybe that famous, at least outside the flamenco world, right?
Mhm.
But probably at the same time she wouldn't have been so criticized afterwards, because she would have continued with the same style. So it's like people would like, okay, well, she's a flamenco style,
Yeah.
she knows what she's doing. you know Now when you get some fame as she did in the previous album, and then you decide to break with everything, and not only break with everything, it's not only that, okay, I did a flamenco album, and then you decide to do I don't know, a bachata album if you
Mhm.
want, or a rock album, whatever, and you change and go to you go for that specific genre. No, you break with it, and then you take parts of what you did previously and you mix it up with other different genres that have nothing to do with it, and you mix it up again in the next section, in the next song, with another one that had even less to do with that.
Yeah.
And not only the styles, but also the sounds. You start mixing the sounds up, and you make everything look as if it's, I don't know, something crazy. Then people don't understand, and when people don't understand, people attack
Yeah.
because they are scared.
Mm. Yeah, and it's also interesting in that song that she ties in the vocal from Soldier Boy, the sample, which again, it's like you have this kind of classical style bolero with
Yeah.
Soldier Boy, who's very contemporary hip hop. And it's funny because that's from a song that's not very well known. I remember from when I was in high school, but the song is
Hmm.
about being, you're so madly in love with someone that you become delirious. So,
Yeah.
juxtaposing delusions of grandeur with being delirious from being in love. Again, saying that she's so in love with fame that it might make her delirious, might make her like lose her
She's so
sensibility.
so in love, but at the same time, she shows, because that's another thing that in the video was really not criticized. People were not hating me for it, but people were like telling me, "Hey, you made a mistake," because when you make a mistake, people are ready with a finger to,
Yeah.
to point at you, and they're like, "No," because I said that it was her voice. I didn't know this Soldier Boy.
Mhm.
One second. I used Soldier Boy was the one with the. I know. I think
The
I'm
big
talking
song
about
was
another.
Crank
No,
That, and it was the dance. Like that was
no,
probably
I was
what
talking about another
2000s.
one. I was talking. I think I was talking about another song, not the one
Okay.
with Soldier Boy. I was talking about the one with a kid. There was one of the songs that were with a kid from TikTok.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Mm. But yeah, it is related to this. That's why I was thinking of that one. So I said I was her voice treated with some software. I don't know what like they do with the with autotune and all that. To make it a little bit different. And it turns out that it's not her voice. It's some kid from TikTok that I didn't know.
Okay.
Um, but the effect is the same.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, the effect was the same. I don't care if it was her voice or if it was a random TikTok kid,
Hmm.
right? So it was like she was talking about love and all that, but showing it with that voice, showing with like with making it childish, you know,
Mm,
and
interesting.
by that making it or showing it as something uncontrollable by her,
Yeah.
something that escapes her hands. Let me think if I can find the song.
Um, was it Keep It Cute? Or yeah, the cute
Yeah,
one?
I think it
Yeah.
was that one. Yeah,
Yeah, that
probably
was
keep it
it.
cute. Probably, yeah, keep it cute. That's why actually, if you pay attention to the title of the song, it's written with a lot of U's, right? So like
Yeah.
in a childish way as well.
Yeah. And no, I
So
mean it, and I think what you say about the last song, Sakura, that first of all, it was a recording from a live concert, whereas the rest of the album is
mhm,
studio recorded, but also the theme of, the cherry blossom itself, Sakura. That the cherry blossom doesn't last long. It's beautiful, but it's
yeah,
short-lived, like the experience of fame. And it starts to make you wonder, like, is she predicting that her own career is going to end soon, or that, I don't know, like it's again, it's her questioning, is this all worth it? Like, is this fame that I have now, this recognition,
mhm,
have a real worth? Or is it just something that's gonna die, that's gonna end at some point, like the beauty of the flower? It's an interesting way to end the
yeah.
album. And especially an
I
album
think
like this.
I think that she's pretty aware of the um, the fact that the fama is going to end at some point.
Hmm.
Well, sometimes it ends when you die, sometimes it ends earlier than that.
Hmm.
But it's not something that is everlasting, it's not something that is forever with you or for you. And even if it is, it's not always the same. You're not always at the same point of the fame. And I think that we can make a parallel with the fame here in Sakura, right? So it can
Hmm.
be represented by this flower from and it's cherry. I think it's cherry
Cherry
flower, right?
blossom, yeah.
In Japanese, yeah. Um, so yeah, I probably that's why she left it for the end of the album, saying this is the end of the album. The album is not, again another parallel with the album. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not gonna be everlasting, and it's another way of mixing things up again and creating
Hmm.
something new.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I can't help but read into this last song, like again, this kind of larger cultural commentary, because the album itself really is representative of this postmodern cultural moment where, I don't know, like you see the breaking down of certain categories that we've always taken for
Hmm.
granted to be true. We see merger of opposing ideas, also just this globalist sensibility that, this is the world today, like where everybody's connected through TikTok. These major corporations are around the world. So again, the album isn't like an artistic representation of the moment we're in. But to end on this note, I think is makes us call into question, like, is the world going to keep going like this, the way it is? Like, is the breakdown of these categories, is the sense of chaos, the global sensibility, is it something that can last? Is it something that has true substance, or is it going to die like the flower? Is it something, just exciting in the moment, but that will, you know,
Hmm.
it's gonna not be worth something. It's gonna be worthless in, a certain period of time. Again, it's like, and this is why it's frustrating that people just listen to her and either they listen for fun or they're critical. And it's like, no, there's so much that she's saying here if you pay attention. There's so
Yeah.
much to think about, right?
Yeah. And we can see, as you said, we can see this album as a image of what this world has become as well. So are we going to continue? You said, are we going to continue like this? Are we going? Well, we are destined to mix. That's it. I mean, at all levels, you can take this to whatever level you want, to whatever field you want. We are destined to mix from the beginning of the times, not only in music. It's survival. I think that's how everything survives. Human species, we are mixing all the time. Sometimes you hear these political speeches talking about the purity of some races. It's
Hmm.
like, what are you talking about? I mean, I think that today there's nobody who can say that it's 100% something. Nobody.
Yeah.
Because probably your grandpas would be from another country, from another continent, even if you say. With music, the same. All music have been developing, evolving, right? And that happened mixing up with other styles. We have some styles that are probably more, okay, let's say more pure, if you want, but at the end, they always have something to do with other styles. Um, Even sometimes we have styles from different countries that have never, let's say, touched each other,
Hmm.
but they still have something in common. They share something. Languages, the same thing. The same thing. I mean, again, we have we are in a world where, as I say, you can say something now, and in 15 seconds somebody from the opposite point of the world can hear it, and then you just said that you cannot change it,
Hmm.
right? It happens like that, right, in a moment. How do you fight against that?
Yeah.
I think it's impossible. You
Yeah.
can be all the angry that you want, you can be mad at whoever you want, but at the end of the day you had to face it. That's it. That's how it works. And I was talking about languages. Listen, English. You and me are now talking in English.
Yeah.
I'm Spanish. You're from New Jersey. Opposite points.
Yeah.
At the end, English has some words taken from Spanish. Spanish has again words taken from English. Spanish have some words taken from French. French has some words taken from Spanish. It works like that.
Yeah.
And listen, for example, we have in Spain Euskera, Basque is
Hmm.
one of our minority languages, and it's really interesting because it's one of the few, at least European languages that don't come from Indo-European,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So for
Interesting.
those speakers who are listening to us now and they don't know what I'm talking about, if we try to trace all the languages back to an main and common language, right?
Hmm.
For example, we have Spanish, and we go back to Old Castilian probably, and then Latin, and then and then English. We have the parents of English. We find modern English, medium English, old English, even Gothic,
Yeah.
high Germanic languages,
Yeah.
and all those traced, to the same language, which is Proto-Indo-European,
Yeah.
which is like the mother of all the modern European languages. Well, Basque doesn't come from that language.
Hmm.
I think that Hungarian neither, for example, is one of the few
Really?
languages that don't come
I
from.
didn't
Yeah,
know that.
the
Wow.
problem is that the experts don't know where the language come from.
Hmm.
They don't know. They discovered, I think, a few years ago that Basque come from Aquitaine, which is a language
Really?
spoken in the Pyrenees. Yeah, it has some roots, but one is not 100% sure. And second, even if that's true, they haven't found out what is like the real origin of the language. That would be Occitan. Sorry, Aquitaine would be like a intermediate language, but
Yeah.
nobody knows the primigenial language. Now, what is interesting about this language? This language is spoken in the north of Spain in a really small area called Basque Country, also in Navarre, which is another autonomous community, and in some areas in the south of France.
Mhm.
When they try to find out the origin of a language, one of the things that they do is try to look for similarities with similar languages. Okay, how do you do with this language? This language has similarities with Japanese, but at the same time, has similarities with Arab. So how do we do with
Okay.
that?
Wow.
So maybe they never were at the same point at the same time, but they mix somehow, right? They share something. They need to evolve. So at some point there was something in the language that was evolving for some necessity, probably in the speaking, and needed to change in a way. So nothing stays forever as it was at the beginning. And with music, I think it is the same thing. She's evolving. And also, you mentioned, for example, that in the last album, I mean, the previous album in Marquere, some people were complaining because they said that she should show more respect about the gypsies and all that.
Yeah.
How old was she?
Hmm. Now I don't know.
How old was she? I think let me try to find
She
it out now
was. I'm gonna look.
because internet is magic. You have
Yes.
right now.
She's 20. She's almost
She's
30.
29.
Yeah.
She's 29 right now. She's becoming, yeah, she's turning 30 this year.
So Malquerer
She
was
was really young.
2017. Yeah, so she must have been what, 24 maybe?
If I look up the album and Marquere,
It was
it was
2017.
released. It was released in the 2018,
18. Okay.
which is not the year which she started recording it. So we
Yeah.
understand that it takes 1 or 2 years maybe to do that. So probably she started in the 2016. So she was 6 years younger than now, right?
Yeah,
6
so
years.
23.
She was really young,
Yeah.
and she's still changing. That's why another thing I think that we haven't really talked about in the interview so far, but talking about change, the album means change. I mean, the image of the album is a butterfly. I mean, there's no more clear way of saying to you, hey, I'm changing.
Yep.
I'm evolving, and my music is too. So she is still, from my point of view, right? There's no dogma, but that's what I can interpret it.
Yeah. No. There's just a lot to be read into this album, and no, and I appreciate you coming on just to break it down and discuss the different themes that are here. So no, before we go, anything you want to plug, any of your channel and any of your pages you want to mention?
Well, my channel, well, if you like languages and interesting things about languages, my channel is Crónicas Lingüísticas. It's in Spanish mainly, although lately I am subtitling
Yes.
the videos into English. Sometimes because I know that the automatic subtitles doesn't really work.
No, really.
It's really bad now. So I'm taking my time to title the scripts that I make, and then posting them into English as well.
Awesome.
So I guess that way it would be open for more people as well.
And any social media pages you want to plug?
Well, more the same. Still the same. Oops, sorry, I don't know what I touched here on Zoom. Same thing on Instagram. Same thing on Twitter. I use Twitter less, but yeah, mostly on Instagram is where you can find me. And sometimes I upload some videos on TikTok just because nowadays, you need to be everywhere, otherwise people don't know you or whatever. So, but yeah, YouTube and Instagram are the social networks that I use the most usually.
Awesome. Well, Rick, thank you again for coming on.
Thank you for inviting me, mate.